Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kerr, and I am the curator of Seriatim, an art exhibit presently on display at the Dr. Jeffrey A. Gallery on the Queens campus of St. John's University in New York City. Featured in it are the works of 6 top graphic artists whose body of work follows a sequential graphic narrative. 3 of these artists are featured in this vodcast and have generously agreed to share a little about their working methods, influences, and backgrounds. The first is David Gothard. We visit him in his studio in Bangor, PA.
I'm David Gothard, and I'm in my studio here, and I'm just finishing up one of the pieces that will be in the St. John's show. This is part of the Ink and a Brush with Death series, and although it doesn't fit the conventional or traditional definition of sequential art, it is one theme in which I can expand upon through a series of drawings. And so they become kind of sequential in that way when viewed all together. Anyway, this is the last drawing, and it's called Reluctant Man of War, the pun being the Man of War helmet here. And it features a middle-aged guy who could be in the reserves maybe, called into duty, never thought he'd be in a battle zone, and he's witnessed some pretty atrocious stuff. And so all the carnage is reflected in the tentacles behind. And just putting the last few touches on it. It's watercolor and ink, and it'll be ready for hanging.
Martin Kozlowski's work bridges the worlds of graphic satire and sequential art. Developing strips for the Earth Times, Fortune, and the Hartford Courant, Martin's witty graphic stories excoriate the mighty, mock the wealthy, and turn a telling mirror on a celebrity-obsessed culture. Whereas many of the images in this show beg to be seen for the mastery of their creator's art, Martin's strips also call for a read, as the wit written on each page easily matches the wit drawn. We join Martin in his studio in Ridgefield, Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Martin Kozlowski. Growing up, I was a big fan of all kinds of sequential art, whether it was the work of guys like Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby in the superhero genre, if it was Wally Wood and Mort Drucker and the humorous work they did for Mad Magazine, Disney Animation, Sunday Funnies, all of it was very inspirational to me, and I think it's one of the main reasons I went on to become an illustrator in the first place. Initially, the work I did do in illustration was not sequential. It was op-ed style work done for places like the New York Times, mostly of a political nature or social satire, where it was a single image, not using all the accoutrements, all the props of the comic book page. Finally, in 1992, I was asked to create a strip for a paper called the Earth Times on the subject of global politics. I enjoyed it very, very much. It was a whole new set of challenges, and I continued with that for about 10 years. Some of the specific challenges that I like about working in the comics form, when you're working in a two-dimensional space, you use drawing techniques, perspective, various visual tricks to try to create the sense of depth or space. What's nice about comics is you're now working with the 4th dimension, that of time, and you really have to pace and move between in and out. There's a cinematic sense to it. It's a whole new set of challenges. It's forced me to simplify some of my drawing, which has actually, I think, strengthened my work in general. It's also given me a working method in terms of production that I've applied to my illustrations. I pencil these, ink them in, scan them, put them in the computer, and in the computer add the color. And I find using that same method has been very, very useful with the tight deadlines that occur in the editorial art field. The other thing I really enjoy about doing comics is there's a sense of authorship. I've actually written these things myself. It's not as though I'm illustrating somebody else's editorial point of view from their manuscript. And also I like to chat, I like words, and it gives me a chance to play with the words. So all those things are very satisfying. As you move on in your career, it's nice to have new challenges, and these certainly afford that. it seems to me the next natural step would be to move towards animation. I've just started doing some of that specifically for the internet, and I hope that will open up new possibilities.
As you enter the gallery, you'll encounter a wall populated by The Golem's Voice, a graphic novel as drawn by David Klein. David has included much of the research, exploratory sketches, and studies made to realize what for him is a very personal project. On exhibit are 48 pages of emotionally charged storytelling, completed with unparalleled technical virtuosity. We join David in his Brooklyn, New York studio.
Hi, I'm David Klein. I am the author of The Golem's Voice. The Golem's Voice is a story about a young Jewish boy who, trying to evade the Nazis during the Second World War, comes across the Golem of Prague, and together end up having a fantasy adventure. This is sequential art, most commonly known as a comic, and serves this kind of work because it is a series of images that take you not only through space but through time, and in this particular case tell a story through time. I got involved in this, interestingly enough, sort of through the movies. I was having a conversation with Mark Summers, who is the story editor at Pixar. I was talking to him about doing storyboards for Pixar, which are the drawing out of how a film will look in individual pictures, also sort of like a comic book. I went home thinking I was going to do some samples for storyboards, pulled out an old story I had worked on many years ago, and it kept wanting to be this comic book. And as I was drawing the Golem story, it became The Golem's Voice.
Though not featured in this production, Seriatim also includes the printmaking of William Ronalds, the cinema storyboarding of Brick Mason, and the graphic novels of Peter Cooper. On behalf of Gallery Director Parvez Mohsin and myself, thank you for viewing this vodcast.